For our national anthem, performed this afternoon by Peter Griffin and his dirt bike.
Hey, this is Ryan Villapoto, and listen to DMXS Radio.
All right, everybody, welcome back to DMXS Radio. As always, we appreciate you guys tuning back in. Don't forget to check out the Roger DeCoster and Justin Brayton pods that we just dropped. And, of course, our sponsors to make all this possible, Dunlop Tires, the best tires in the business. Check them out at Ride Dunlop, Racer X, MX Sports, W Wheels, OGO Concept 2 Rowers. We appreciate all of the support over the years, so thank you guys for all of that. But now it's time for a special guest. We're looking forward to this for 2 days now. None other than Chad Reed. Welcome back to the DMXS, Reedy.
What's happening, guys?
Man, we are killing it, but I get tired looking at your YouTube channel. You guys are wide effing open.
That's moto. I mean, there's no other way to put it. You know, I mean, geez, I've been doing this since I was 4 years old, and
yeah,
it doesn't slow down. This is the time to ramp it up and keep the throttle on. You know, so I feel like I had a few years there where we kind of retirement, and you know, the world kind of went a little crazy there, and you know, kids were trying to figure out what they were doing, and now we're wide open, which honestly I like better.
Yeah, you and Ellie have, like, I text you, so you guys have been wide open since you were kids leaving Australia. So I can't imagine the retirement lasting too long for you guys at your age.
Yeah, retirement's overrated, honestly. Everybody talks, you know, about it differently, but I enjoy moto, and I enjoy the kids and the family time, and we're kind of, I don't know, fortunate. We're mixing it all together. So having fun and following the 75 North.
Yeah, if you guys, obviously everybody follows your YouTube channel, but if you haven't checked in recently, you guys are on the road to Loretta's as a family. It's kind of cool watching you and the kids, you know, qualify and jump across the United States like almost every family has done to get back into this sport over the years. So just walk back. I know you guys have done your channel for a little bit, but why did you guys decide to do Loretta's? Why jump in both feet?
I think it's the natural progression for the kids. You know, like they're obviously, you know, around other kids, and as they evolve and get better and faster, you know, all the kids in our sport, the national championship is the highest level. So yeah, it's a sensitive subject, I guess. You know, like I don't always have the perfect answer that the higher ups like, but you know, like I don't like centering, you know, the development and the riding and, you know, my whole year's, you know, commitment around one race.
Understood. Yeah.
You know, so for me, personally, what I love about our, let's call it Road to Loretta's is just a bunch of different tracks, you know, like, we're on our third week straight. You know, we were at Lake Sugar Tree in Virginia, and then we were
Pleasure Valley.
And then we spent the week in West Virginia at Tomahawk.
Yeah.
And then we raced Pleasure Valley in Pennsylvania. So, and then we came home to Florida because we had a couple things we needed to do. Of course, during that trip, we were like, man, let's do some more racing. And the next race that we are choosing to do is in Ohio, which was about 3 hours from Pleasure Valley. But we made it about a 30-hour trip because we had to go back to Florida. You know, we had some things we had to handle, but it is what it is. You know, that's part of the grind. You know, I remember my dad, you know, he had a 9 to 5. Well, geez, I don't know that I would call it a 9 to 5. It seemed like from sun up to sundown.
Sure,
he
all
was
day.
Working a normal job. And a horrible job at that. I would never want to be a concreter. God bless the concreters out there because that is a hard job. You know, and he did it. Drove hours and hours and hours. So who am I to complain at this point? You gotta do the work. So yeah, we're heading up to do a race and get to ride a different track, different dirt, you know, different layout and different competition, and that's what we're chasing right now is gate drops and, you know, exposing my kids to all the different, honestly, really cool, badass tracks throughout the United States. So it's fun. I
was watching the Pleasure Valley one. That was my favorite one because you talked about it being like an old school track, and then you even mentioned, you know, if you didn't have it dialed, and you know the old school guys like you and Bubba and RC and Wyndham, you would get schooled. And I just loved how you said it wasn't dissed up, it wasn't one line, it was an old school track with the front end, you know, wasn't always planted. So talk about that a little bit. How interesting, you know, how cool it is for your kids to ride all these different types of tracks.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, obviously we're based in Florida now, so they get exposed to a lot of the sand conditions. And, you know, but when they first started throwing a leg over a dirt bike and really taking it seriously, we were based in North Carolina and red clay. You know, so you've kind of, you know, you're starting to expose them to all the different conditions, you know, the North Carolina clay, and then now transitioning down to Florida. And then now, you know, taking them north and doing Sugar Tree, which was, you know, more hard base, and then Tomahawk, which was really old school, just like you know, Pleasure Valley. And so just different dirt. You know, they utilize sawdust. It's a hard base underneath. Pleasure Valley was just reminded me so much of like Steel City and OG.
How cool.
You know, what Mount Morris. You know, just. You know, like multiple tabletops that were all different sizes and doubles up the hill. And it was I rode practice day at Pleasure Valley. And it was just fun to kind of just, feel something that you used to feel a lot, you know, and now I feel every track you run the same tire now, you know, like it's basically a spec tire series, and it just, you know, every one of the tracks and nationals and Loretta is included into that. It's just deep, ripped, it's ruddy. Yeah. You know, so it's just kind of the same. So I personally like seeing my kids struggle, having to open the throttle and be wide open, and like Tomahawk was really fast, and they were like, wow, this track's so fast. And I rode the track as well, and I was like, damn, like even I noticed, like I'm like on the old 450, you're shifting into the fourth, and you're like, damn, it's like it's up downhill fast, you know, like it kind of felt like a little bit of a almost like the old school Saturday practice days at Unadilla when it was, you know, a little bit harder, and you know, we were cutting the grass off the top of the, you know, the track and everything like that.
Oh, that's neat.
Yeah, that just reminded me of that. So yeah, a lot of good memories, and again, they don't always necessarily love it, which is great because when they're not loving it, sometimes that's when they're learning, and that's when the weaknesses is getting exposed, you know?
Well, the good thing about this is watching you in this. I mean, you went from, you know, doing this for the kids, wrenching them, driving them around, you know, mechanic, pressure washer, everything. But now you're full in. You're qualified going to Loretta's too. It was funny waking up and having 6 gate drops from off the couch. So you're back in it.
Yeah, I'm. So they have their qualifiers before I do. So obviously, I'm not.
Yeah, right. Understood.
I'm not committed without them. You know. So, and again, I'm honestly 1 foot in, 1 foot out. I could go either way. You know, this particular race obviously requires me to actually qualify. You know, like obviously I made it out of the area, and I have to do my regional. But then again, my regional, it's the southeast one. It's going to be the gnarliest one. It's at Chicony. It's going to be gnarly. You know, like Matt Walker's already telling me how deep it's going to be and nasty it's going to be. And so I'm not going to lie, I'm a little nervous.
It gets rough. I mean, that's our Southwick down south. It just gets. They groom it. Looks like the highway, and then 5 laps in, it's just 4-foot braking bumps everywhere.
Totally. And I don't know if that's going to be good or bad for me. You know, like do I get to rely on my experience, or does it beat the hell out of me and I pay the price for not being in shape?
Yeah. Well, it is neat to watch you as a dad. And I know that, you know, that to me is when I look through the prism of watching your series, you and Ellie, it's as a parent, and would be my dream to do what you guys are doing. I know Kaya, who gets the style awards, all, you know, her gear, her bike, she is just sharp as a tack, and Tate's now 14. So he is, you know, really coming into his own too. So with the 2 kids qualifying as you go across the country, doing all those things, I look at it as a parent and watching you have to, you know, be all those things, the mechanic, the dad, the cheerleader, you know, the disciplinarian, all those things to me is the most interesting part about this journey.
No, it is. And it brings a lot of realization of, you know, how your childhood was, and you get to, in some ways, get to relive it and see it from a different angle, and, you know, appreciate the time spent with family and, you know, the learning and all the different, you know, families and friends and, you know, good and bad people that you meet all over the world and country. And so it's kind of like you're coming full circle, and you have a totally different perspective at this point, you know, your age and what I did in my own career and, you know, all those things. And even Ellie, you know, like she's lived 20 plus years of it at a highest level, but never really seen it at this level, you know? And so, and I would say it's the same, but different, you know? I don't necessarily believe that, you know, what you have to do today is drastically changed to, you know, than what we did as kids. You know, so, and that's probably the biggest thing is, and that's what's probably motivated me to ride is, more is just, you know, having constant understanding of what's happening. You know, you don't want to become the guy that once upon a time did it, and now you're old and fat and retired, and you can't do it like you thought you could. So, you know, I still want to be able to go out and, you know, beat up on my 14-year-old. You know, he's going through his little hormones and starting to flex on me a little bit. Sometimes you got to put him in his place, you know. So.
and I noticed too, when you're riding the same track, I mean, you telling him how to break down like that one corner where you drift out and just do the apex different, you know, to set up for the next thing. When you're on the track, I mean, that's the kind of stuff you can't just get from walking it. I mean, you're out there literally putting in laps as his trainer to help him with the track too.
Yeah, and again, you give a lot up as my own kind of riding, and my own, you know, love and passion for it is I'm out there having fun and enjoying it, but I'm also, you know, there's a reason why I'm out there. I'm, you know, I'm taking mental notes of the track and where the lines are and all those things. And it just gives me, and sometimes, you know, like I raced Lake Sugar Tree because that was my area for, you know, the regional that I can do. And then at the other races, I just did the practice day, and it just, it gives you just understanding of like when you're watching the kids and how they're entering and where they're struggling, where they're strong, all those points. They're just clearer because I rode the day before. And I understand, you know, what they're going through and how the track's going to develop. And sometimes it's hard because, you know, like obviously my experience is really high in many, many years, and you got to dumb that down and put it in a way that they can understand it. And you don't want to overload them either. So it's not easy. It's not, it's a moving target. And as they learn, you know, the information that you give it to them 1 week, they so quickly adapt and, you know, progress that then the information that you need to give them to the next week is already changed, and you have to, you know, find a new way to give it to them so that they can continue to grow, you know. So it's a moving target, but it's enjoyable.
Where were you at 14 on your career? Tate's 14. Where were you in Australia at 14?
14. I was very fortunate, you know, like I was able to travel the world, you know, like I got to, at 14, I was doing, you know, quite a few trips across the pond to New Zealand. I was lucky enough at 14 to get on a plane and go to England and race their schoolboy championship.
Yeah. Wow.
Never got to come to America. I don't know why. I think that it just, the U.S. was always a difficult one. The population and the level is so high here. So the need for, international talent or the care, really, honestly, like everyone's busy with their own talent. That
sure,
there's no one's looking, no one's helping. Where when you go to New Zealand or you go to England, a little kid from Australia was always easier to get support and bikes and things like that. So yeah, I mean, definitely different, but the same pace. Just racing a lot. Like growing up at the bottom of the world and having to take a plane wherever you needed to go out internationally. It was a minimum of a 6-hour flight to New Zealand and a 30-hour flight to England, or a 18-hour flight to the U.S. We're just doing 18-hour drives instead of having to fly.
Which is not nearly as cool, having shit delivered in business class to you when you're on the highway driving.
Yeah, but let me tell you, at 14 years old, I was not sitting in business.
That's true. That's true.
That was back in the years where they were smoking cigarettes in the back of the plane where I was put, and it wasn't very fun.
I know that what age do you remember dreaming of where you wanted to be on a dirt bike? What age did you say, I want to be world champion, I want to be supercross champion, I want to be motocross? I mean, what age was that?
I think the easiest way to say it is I don't remember not wanting that.
Oh, that's beautiful. Okay.
I think that just as like my earliest memories, I just always wanted to, we always got the 3 to 6 months later, the magazines or the videos, the old Speed Vision, Supercross VCRs and everything like that. And, as our family was never fortunate enough to be able to afford them, but I was lucky to have, some friends that were, more fortunate in that area, and they were able to always have it. And so, hanging out with them or them coming to my house and bringing them over.
Oh, that's a dream.
Watching the Supercrosses, 3 to 6 months later. And I just remember literally just wearing the tape out, just watching it. And honestly, that's kind of how I replicated, or how I have a similar style. A lot of people see, Jeremy's style and myself is just because I just wanted to be like Jeremy. Jeremy was obviously winning, but for me, it was more the winning. It was more everything was cool about Jeremy. His outfits, he always looked cool. He always had the raddest helmet,
of course,
the goggles,
yeah.
Like everything just was matched. Everything was put together. And that was what I was intrigued by, how cool he was. He always looked different. He always had his hair done. There was more to it than the riding. The winning was
the whole package.
Cool,
the whole package.
The whole package was. You're like, it was easy to want to be Jeremy.
What does Tate want to do at 14 years old? Does he want to be? I know that Hayden Deegan has blazed this path, and Nick Way's kid and Evan Ferry, all these guys. Does Tate want this? I mean, is he going to just kind of go? Does he already dream about being there? Yeah, no,
he regularly talks about that he wants to do the pro racing, and he kind of. I wouldn't make that public. I guess at this point, I kind of just, he talks about teams he would like to ride for.
Sure.
And, but obviously some of those teams are people that help us regularly, and people that have always been, actually, honestly, people that Tate have always been around. So it just, it's funny. It's so different. Like when I think of my own, like you asked me about what was I doing at 14.
Yeah.
At 14, for me, it was just a dream, right? For him, it's a dream, but it's more, he gets to feel it.
It's tangible, yeah.
And it's different for him. His reality is so different than mine was. He's born into it. I mean, Lars Lindstrom is the team manager of HRC. He was my mechanic. And,
crazy.
Held Tate as a baby, and so Mitch Payton, ever since Tate was a baby, he doesn't know anyone other than just going up to Mitch and saying what's up to Mitch,
Right.
So a lot of these people are he's not intimidated by them as team managers or like what their position are. That they're friends. They're our family friends.
Sure.
So I just think that part of it is so different. For him compared to my 14-year-old self.
And that's kind of neat because you have to have that spark. Or what else are you doing? If you're just saying, "Hey, I want to qualify for Loretta's and get top 20," that's not a spark. That's just an aspiration. But to look at where you've been, to look at where the Degans are of the world, things like that, to maybe aspire to that, to like a Nick Way's kid or a Ferry's kid, that's got to be his own. You can't instill that on him. That fire's got to be from his belly.
Oh, absolutely. I could drive the motorhome all over the country and you see it. You see it at all the races and we've seen it for decades and decades. And I was around many of those kids where the families loved it more than the kids, or the kids loved it at once upon a time and they got burnt out. I think us entering late, Ellie and I don't look at it from a negative standpoint, I feel that there's something special within the kids that I see, for us to commit and do the hours, and put the time, the effort, the money into it. It's because I see something special there.
Good.
I truly believe, and not just speaking as a dad, obviously everyone's proud of their own kids. I truly do see something that's there and it's worth, supporting it, because I see that they're learning and they're chasing it. And our goal, if I'm honest, is not short term. For me, it's
okay.
I have a 14-year-old that's in 2 years going to be 16, and that's pro racing and that's Supercross, and that's where you need to be good. So our goal, at least my goal for them is, there's a lot of things and boxes you have to tick between now and then. But that's the goal is to be ready to be great at that point.
And you said on our show, probably 10 years ago when we were talking about him, first getting on a bike, you said, "I am not driving all over the country if they have no skills." I mean, this is not, so you've always been honest. You would say up front, "Hey, you ain't got it." But what the coolest thing to me is watching your video where you edit it back and forth between you and Tate. And sometimes you guys have the same gear and, and he'll come into a berm and he'll be laid down just for that split second. He looks like you. I know he's on a super mini, but I'm like, that to me is kind of like going back and forth between the future and the past. It's so cool because his style and and the way he's on a bike, it's like, that's a little mini Chad.
No, yeah, he definitely, little things that he starts to do and his mannerisms and, his little riding and stuff like that. And he's kind of going through a bit of a growth spurt. Like recently I kind of saw some older, even just 1 year ago. And it's crazy how much he's shut up and how tall he's got. He's kind of like a little baby giraffe. We always kind of joke within the family. He's like, he was all small and short, and now he's like a little baby giraffe, doesn't know what to do with his limbs. But I think that, and I think that that's the other thing is progressing, at the same level that your body is on bikes and sizes, not really fitting into this,
narrative,
what I call the narrative and the system of what is here in the U.S. where, let's say you want to race Loretta Lynn's. Well, 90% of the race season, you're going to race it at one level, and then you're going to drop down a class
literally
or a size bike. So you can go try to win a national championship. For us, the goal is to, when Tate's, or any of the kids are ready, like Kaya's already on a big wheel, and she's 11. Just because she looks better on it, safer on it, she rides it better. Outside of, Tate chasing Loretta's, like I have desire to put him on a 125 and a 250F, I don't think we need to be messing with the smaller bike. I see him, we have a 125 and he rides it around in the backyard and, and it's funny because he looks picture perfect on it because he's a little on the small side for it, but his riding style and his baby giraffe little limbs, he looks better and more comfortable on the 125 already, like his positioning and stuff like that looks more natural already. So, no, we're excited. Everything's ramping up at the perfect great, and I'm excited for it.
You know, Adam Cincerello was teeny tiny, and then all of a sudden he grew like 7 inches in a year and a half. I mean, it just happened.
I hope we don't grow as much, because Adam was really tiny, and then he really, like you, now he's got to be almost over 6 foot, and it's funny how much Adam grew.
He
like Moto, I don't think you have to be small, but like I think that you know, teams and everything
be in proportion. Be in proportion. And you know, it's like I remember that picture of Kevin Windham on a Super Mini at Loretta's, and he looked like a giant riding on a Super Mini. It's like, you know, you have to progress up with the size that you grow. Yeah,
totally. And then you see it a lot. You know, like a lot of the 50 kids and 65 and 85, they're ginormous on their bikes, but and some kids are just tall and they're young, and you know, like, and then other way around, I've seen a lot of, you know, older kids be really small and they have to stay down. So I think you just got to, you know, right for you is what's right for you.
What do you think about the 85s when they cut them loose on a Supercross track? What do you think of what they're doing and what the insane skills that these kids have, you know, on these smaller bikes?
It excites me, you know, like, if I'm honest, like when I watch the Futures kids, I think it's cool what they're doing, but my personal opinion is I think that they're too old at that point, you know, like you're almost allowing those kids to, like, I think they should put an age limit. I think that should be 14 to 16. I think if you're older than 16, you shouldn't be allowed to do it. I think at that point you should be moving on to be a pro. And if you're not pro at that point, then I think that you need to look for a job. And I don't mean to be mean.
I understood.
That's just my opinion. Yeah. And I have that same opinion with Tate. So, you know, and maybe I eat cow and maybe I'm wrong and, you know, we have to wait, but that's just my feeling, you know, like when I look at Drew and he just turned 16 and he was winning races at 15, like that just shows you right there that they're ready, you know, and I think that, you know, kids develop differently, obviously, but, like when I watched the Super Mini race at Chicago last year at the SMX,
that was crazy. Yeah.
Well, like they have, like, it reminds me of the 125 class in the 90s. Like their lives depended on going fast and just sending it, you know? And now, like, everything's so calculated, you know, contracts are so far in advance. Yeah. Like there's no need to go and prove yourself or fight for your livelihood anymore. It seems like
you already signed. Yeah.
And so, like, just my personal opinion is when I watched the Super Mini, like, all those kids were just full of hormones and no one was locked in for a 5-year pro contract at 13 years old.
Yeah.
You know, like they just wanted to be there. They wanted to go fast. They wanted to show the world that they were the best. And I love that, you know? And again, like that class is going to, you know, pass it. We're moving on.
Right.
But I just think that, you know, like from my own, I love that. And that's why I supported the 85 group in Australia, you know, and because I got to do Supercross at 12 years old, and I started racing Supercross with the pros at 12 years old.
Oh my gosh.
And you know, and so like from 12 to 14, we did 85, or the 80s back then. And then we raced 125s from 14 to 16. And at 16 in Australia, you had to go professional. You know, there was no,
wow. Okay.
And, you know, like here, actually, Australia's changed now. Like, honestly, I think it's terrible, but Australia's now changed and they've kind of adopted the American system. And, you know, with 25 million people, it's just not enough people to do it. And when you look at the depth and the, you know, the lights class down there, it's just so weak because, my opinion, there's too many people. Like, you needed to, it's just not a big enough group and not enough people down there to divide that part up. So I actually wish that they would go back to making them go pro at 16.
You know, every once in a while that we think there's a messiah, there's a next great coming, you know, the ACs and all this stuff that you know, work out or didn't work out. Other than Deegan being that age, and I know Juju's having a great year at 17 years old. Why do you think these kids that have come out of amateurs the last 5-6 years just have not made an impact when they turn pro? I mean, that's a loaded question, but it seems like
it's a loaded question, and it's a hard one to answer because it's really just opinion, right? And I think that it can always be right or wrong, and I haven't necessarily worked with any of them directly, and so it's hard to say. But I mean, this is where we're really seeing the fruit of
right
what I call the facility kids, and they're not necessarily working out.
That's what I mean. There's a pattern. Yeah, there's a pattern.
Yeah, so I think that there's a little bit of a pattern there. I think that's one thing. I do believe that our sport has progressed so much. And it's really impressive, and so it's a hard one to comment on for me because I think in some ways I'm split where I think it's so cool and so awesome. But then sometimes I look at it as there's really not a lot of fruit to chase anymore. Like when you go to Loretta's and there's that much manufacturer support, one part of me, man, that's cool for these kids. The other part of me says, but they've got it all at that point. And what else is there to want, Like they've kind of already achieved it and they've ticked all the boxes and they're under a big semi at the national championship. And sometimes I think that, I don't know, like I wish that we'd go back to handing out a bunch of bikes and parts and letting the parents go racing
and figure it out.
The manufacturers and the semis go away from amateur racing and that just becomes amateur racing again, not semi-pro racing. I'm torn. I'm 50-50. I see a part of it that's so rad and so cool, and then that I'm like, we need to leave something for everybody to chase and something that's different,
There's a reason that the Deegan, they fought so hard on that bike when they got claimed because the technology and the prices of what they're racing at Loretta's now is just it's too much. It needs to go back to where if you lose it doesn't hurt as bad. Now that's a pretty good gauge to me is that the bikes have gotten way too fancy for amateur racing.
Yeah, I agree to disagree on that. I think that the cream's always going to rise to the top. You could put Hayden on a stock bike. He was still going to always do what he did.
Yeah.
And I'm commenting from my own personal experience. Just because it's a factory bike doesn't mean it's good. Doesn't mean it's better. Everybody thinks a factory bike. I mean, I've rode more bad factory bikes than I have good. And so I don't always believe that. Like, I always think that at some point, like Super Mini, like it's just a money hungry, rebuild it all the time. And it's a fun bike to build and the age group and how it works. I think it makes sense for people to do it, but it shouldn't be, like, I don't know that it needs to be like, I don't know, the whole claim world needs to go away. I don't think our sport is like that anymore.
Yeah.
I think that these bikes are too, like, past the point of them being factory and their money worth.
Yeah.
I think that those bikes they're worth too much to families in the fact that, that was Hayden's last year on an amateur bike, and I'm sure they kept that bike like, again, when you look at James's, bikes that he has, and he has a bike from every year he raced, and I just think that that's so rad. And there's no human on earth that should feel that they deserve being able to get a factory bike and buy it. Those are earned, not bought. And so that whole claim rule is dumb, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that what it did is just highlighted the difference between the haves and the have-nots. I mean, that's my point. Is that the haves have a lot, and they have earned it because they've made the impression and gotten the offers and gotten the rides. But that when you line up against half the field has that and half the field doesn't, into the first corner. I mean, that's a huge advantage. It's just like privateers and factory riders right now.
It's gotten a lot smaller too. I mean, like once upon a time, factory suspension was literally 5 to 10 years ahead of everybody. Now, now stock bikes come with, for the most part, the bones of what a factory suspension is. And when you look at a factory KTM, like actually not even a factory KTM, like my last KTM, it it was a stock, stock valves, stock head. We just ran a piston and an ECU and a pipe, and it was one of the fastest dirt bikes I've ever ridden. And currently I have a new 24, factory edition bike. It has an ECU on it and it has a pipe on it. And truthfully speaking, it's too fast.
Yeah.
It's fast enough. I genuinely believe I could go and whole shot a pro national.
Yeah.
On the stock bike with just a pipe and an ECU on it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's not like it once upon a time was.
What about the cost of amateur racing, doing what you guys are doing? Like, just the bottom dollar for most families.
I lost you for a second.
Yeah,
you cut out.
It sounded like a semi ran over you. I said, what about the cost is of like amateur racing, like what you guys are doing for the normal family? Is it attainable? Is it something that's more than you thought, less than you thought?
Again, that's a loaded question that I don't know that the higher ups like my answer.
Yeah. Well, the thing it's you see people like Levi Kitchen and some of these guys that were off the radar came through and it basically showed up at Loretta's and got there. There are still ways to get to to get factory rides and to make it in the sport. I just know that with the facility costs, the traveling costs, all those costs, it's one of those things. I mean, there's a huge discussion right now, Chad, about there shouldn't be privateers in the sport anymore. I know you're a big F1 guy and GP guy where you can't just show up. A dude can't just sling a bike in the back of his truck and qualify for the weekend. So are we reaching to the point now where we have enough great riders where we can line the gate with that are supported by factories or by sponsors and not even think about the privateer side now?
I don't believe so. I just think that for me, the rate of, like, let's look at last year, look how many people got hurt, how many factory riders got hurt.
Yeah. It was diluted.
There's two ways to look at it. It's like either, to answer your question, I simply do not believe that we should get rid of privateers.
Good. Me neither.
I think that, I think that that's something cool about AMA racing is that anyone can show up. And try to put themselves in the 22 rider main event. The only other way to do it that would be justifiable, in my opinion, is that, like you said about Formula One, and Formula One has backup drivers. Those guys, are very safe. So it's really rare that anyone runs into an issue where, they're sick or has become really safe. Where moto, there is no roll cage or harness devices and things that, harnesses and all these things that protect these drivers. Dirt bike riders still have, we're still so vulnerable. And so then, I just think that that's when it's important, because you always want the gate to be filled with people and deservingly being there, so. I don't know. I think that'd be a hard one for me to, see privateers go away. What
about the new track changes with the whoop pad limits and like no more dragon backs, things like that? I know with SMX and the Nationals, I mean, the season's very long for professional riders. What about the track changes?
I mean, it's fitting with the time, right? Like it's 2024, 2020 happened and the world's just drastically changed. So, I mean, it fits the narrative of everything since then. So
you like them hard. I mean, so it's just it's the softening of society. Or are you saying that you don't agree with that, or that it's what everybody's doing right now? It's just basically rounding off the edges.
Yeah, it's so hard because for so many years I've seen him try so many different things, and you can't. I don't think you can be mad at people for trying. I think that, the data that they have, talking about Feld, the data that Feld has, I'm sure that they look and they have, behind closed door meetings with the medic team and the AMA, and they look at, the obstacles that are claiming riders. It just, the thing that sucks is you want everybody to be safe, and I don't want anybody to get hurt, think that sucks. But the other thing that I don't like is you're taking a lot of the tools away from the great riders. And that's the only thing. I wish that there was a way to have it all, and I just don't know that you can always have it all.
And that's a fair assessment, because the more difficult the tracks it's been through society, through history, the riders that can adapt to the to the most technical tracks, they should be rewarded.
Yeah, and again, it's weird because the tracks on the maps looked really good this year, and I don't know if they're just they've had a lot of weather this year.
Yeah, a lot of weather.
And so I would probably side away from the tracks and how they're built, because I just think it doesn't really change. I've seen it for 20 plus years be different, and I just don't know that the results ever really change one way or the other. And so probably the biggest thing, if I could change one thing, would be just how much the preparation goes into them. I feel like they try to make them so nice and perfect in a way that what I mean by that is let's talk about Denver last weekend, and it's like they knew it was going to be hard packed, and so they watered it ridiculously before practice, and then they did had all these special tools that it just creates ruts, and it just kind of becomes like train track racing, once you're in a rut. And I think that's why the contact in turns is always so aggressive, because when you try to go in and make a pass, you used to be able to just from both sides, like the rider getting passed, you used to be able to as you were getting past, or somebody showed you a wheel, you used to be able to then chase it to the top of the berm and kind of somewhat not just let him go, but at some point you had to either choose, hey, I'm going to try to put my elbows out here, am I going to make contact and we're both going to go down?
I'm going to let
or they're going to, you're going to just basically chase the bike to the top of the berm, and then the pass is made. Where now you can't go wide anymore, because you're just in this rut and you're stuck in it. And so when people get in there and they try to get aggressive, the contact comes and it looks so much more gnarly, because the rider is basically up against a brick wall and can't go anywhere.
Right.
And so I almost would rather see hard, slippery tracks come back, blue groove,
right?
Hard pack where guys can move around,
go anywhere,
because then they can keep their whoops and or lack thereof, and no dragons. But now we're going to give the guys with a good right hand, give them an advantage to try to make up from the lack of whoops or gator backs and things like that, and so, but then you still get to keep the track safe. But then the guys can pass, and they can make aggressive, they can dive bomb down the inside, and then the guy that they're trying to pass can take another line rather than being stuck in the rut.
Right. What about comms between the mechanics and the riders, or team managers and the riders? You think they should have in-helmet communications?
Absolutely. Yeah,
it's about time. It's time.
There is no reason why we should not. I mean, there's only upside. I just don't see that there's any negative to it. The common thing that I hear from the AMA and Feld, or old school team managers, which there's not a lot of them, thankfully, left, is that they're all, now you could just tell the rider that there's a guy on your inside. Yeah. Let me tell you, there's...
Oh, you broke up.
With their communication, I just think it could be good. I think now we're taking away the whoops, or taking away, the gnarly whoops. We're taking away gator backs. So the entertainment side of it, let's give the fans at home, some radio communication. I mean, NASCAR or any sports car or Formula One or any
I'll
car
do it. Yep.
thing. Like it's always entertaining, good or bad. Like it's always a different. I don't know. It always adds to the show. I've never seen radio communication that's lame.
Yeah, the Jet Lawrence this year. I know that you're a big fan of his. This is you helped pave the way from y'all's home country to here. What do you think about his full rookie year at Supercross?
I mean, I think it's been about what we all thought.
Other than the weather, this has been what we really. Those weather races kind of kept everybody in it.
Yeah, I kind of seen it going better, honestly. But I think as a rookie, it shows how gnarly Supercross is.
Right.
Even, like how gnarly and how perfect he was last year in outdoors. There still has been mistakes this year. And I think that just, again, I think I've commented on your particular show before where it's cool that as good and as clever as he is, that Supercross still brings out mistakes, it's
right.
Like riding a 450 around Supercross is just not a pushover, and it's just not easy for everybody to do. And so, I think that he's managed everything really well. Every mistake that he's made, it seems like he's bounced right back and responded in a positive way. It seems like almost seems bored at times, I think that sometimes when he makes the mistakes and the points get tight, he gets a little more focused and we see the better version of him that's more dominant.
Are you more surprised with Cooper Webb's season or Chase Sexton's down season? I know that Coop's second in points, Tomac than Chase, but Chase defending champion coming in here, swapping bikes. And did you think he'd have a better season?
I think Chase has had a solid season. I think he's had a solid season. I mean, I think the number one on his bike, I think, is sometimes viewed as he's the champ, and I get it that he's the champ, but how dominant Eli was last year. I think that you got to be in it to win it always. Right. But things fell his way last year, and I think that the mistakes that I seen Chase make last year, I think he made less of those this year. But they're still there. I think that outside of his mechanical issue that he had, again, it was a weird one. Sounds like his throttle got stuck, but then every video I've seen, it doesn't sound like his throttle stuck. So it's a strange one for me. I don't know what happened. I don't have the data to look at. Yeah. But I don't necessarily believe the throttle went wide open. But I think that he did have a mechanical issue. And so I think outside of that, I mean, he was right in it.
Nashville killed him. Killed him in the points.
He was right there. He was narrowing it down. I think he was putting himself in places. What surprises me more, honestly, is to go to a team with that high a standard, and for them to come into the season as unprepared as they did, and as far off as they did. I think that that's both rider and team. It's just unacceptable. I think that I'm more surprised by that than his performances. I think he's actually had a pretty solid season. The growth has been there. You've seen when the bike was good that the speed was there. I think that bike has a lot more potential. I think that they just need to, the rider and team need to communicate in a better way. And I think that's at a very high level.
And so if we're buying stocks and this is, the riders, the stocks, so are you going to buy, sell, or hold? Are you holding Sexton? You buying, you're selling? I mean, if you don't have him, are you going to buy him, or, you're saying he's, you're going to hold him if you're a team manager?
I think you have to hold him because who else do you go with? You know, I mean, you got Jet that's 21 here soon. Yeah. You got Hunter that's 25. Mm-hmm. You've got Coop 28. But all the other factory riders are 30 plus years old. Yeah. So we're about to lose
a bunch. Yep.
5 or 6 people here in the next couple of years. And I don't know who you replace them with right this minute. And so I think that, Chase is 23, I think, 24. He's still really young, and I think that Chase has so much potential. He just needs guidance, maybe a different approach. But I truly believe that Chase is very skilled, has a lot of things that he could do better. But I think for the most part, the bones of what you need, he has. And I don't see anyone, outside of Hunter and Jet, as far as like when you look at age and where they're at in the sport.
Potential,
Chase is the next guy. I mean, his stock is still high in my opinion.
And Hunter, I know Hunter came in banged up this year and has got off to a little bit of a rough start on a 450, but a couple podiums and Denver was a great ride. Do you think that Hunter's breakout season is going to be next year where people are going to be reminded of why he's on factory Honda?
It's always funny to hear stuff like that because I never, I don't see what normal people say about things like that. I just think I think he belongs there.
Yeah.
I think, I when I watch Hunter, I see somebody that has more potential than his positions right now. I think that I think he's very different than his brother on how he needs a bike. And sometimes I feel like he's riding his brother's bike.
Interesting.
And so I don't know. That's just my opinion, what I see. I just think I always look at the balance, and Jet is so much different on how he rides and his physique and how much taller he is than Hunter. I'm not surprised that the performance came at an altitude race. When performance comes from an altitude race, there's so many things that throws alarms and
it's an outlier,
and brings the answers for me. So yeah, again, I'm not employed by HRC or the Lawrences, so that's all I'll say, I guess.
What about?
I think Hunter is really clever. He's smart. He's a great rider. I just see sometimes the balance, and there's so many things you can look at it and different ways you can look at it, but a 450 always wants to be in a special little window differently than a lights bike. And I think that him being shorter than his brother and you have much less leverage and all those kinds of things. So I think that his window is smaller than Jet because of that. And I sometimes don't see the balance of, what he just looks, like he's limited sometimes.
Were you shocked as everybody with Vial? I mean, he kind of, I know that, when out of the country comes into Supercross, it's usually an adjustment period, which he did go through. What about his year? That's an amazing story this year.
I think he's a super nice kid. I was more surprised by his season or lack thereof last year.
Oh, okay.
I think that this year, you don't become a 2-time world champion for nothing. The way he's managing this championship, I think is not a surprise at all. Most guys that are being down the path that he has, and like I said, a 2-time champion at a high level, although he's young and although that he was a rookie last year, he still has that experience of knowing when to go and when to fold him and, take certain positions and, when it's your turn. His lack of whoop speed is concerning to me. But outside of his whoop skills, he's really clever and he's I think he's going to, win his first championship here in the Supercross.
You've gone into the final round down and needing some help. What's Deegan do in Salt Lake City? I know it's got east west. It's points are down. Lots of stuff can happen. Do you force it? What do you do if you're Deegan here? Because you can't just win.
I think that Hayden just has to do. Hayden has to do what he did at whatever the one race that he just kind of hole shotted and rode away.
Foxborough,
those guys. Yeah. What was it, Foxborough?
Yeah.
It's crazy that that's the Hayden I know, and it just seems that he hasn't been able to tap into that at all this year very much. And so for me, there's a lot of questions on what's happening and why those performances are not coming more consistently. Because I believe that's the true potential of Hayden. I think that what Hayden has going for him and that I would be banking on is the fact that it's an East-West shootout. There's another title on the line. that's tied up. And so Vial unfortunately kind of holds a pretty solid hand because he have 13 points?
Yeah, 13 or 50. Yeah, 13, 14 points. Yeah.
Yeah, he has 13 points, which is not, it's not sealed, right? But it's pretty damn nice to have 13 points in your favor.
Yeah, not 3. Yeah.
And you can, I think that Vial can go and ride a solid weekend, get a good start, and ride around. Where I think that Hayden just needs to take advantage of the fact that the other coast is going for a title, and that it's the last race, and it's always hard in the light class because half of them are already moved on emotionally to outdoors.
Okay,
and so they don't even care about the race.
Yeah,
and so the guys that can get in there, they're not even really that. Their care factor is low. And then there's guys that are jobless and their contracts are up, and those guys are going to fight for positions because they want to know that, show them that they can do it. I think Shimoda's performance this past weekend helps a guy like Deegan because he wants to end the season strong.
Sure.
So that's what I would rely on if I was Hayden, is just knowing that there's a few guys and then there's another coast that's really fighting for positions, and every position's going to count. And then hopefully, Vial gets a bad start and allows you to, but you do you and do a Foxborough, get the whole shot and run away and let the cards fall where they fall.
What about Kitchen and Hampshire coming in tie? That's neat. And I mean, RJ is just the sentimental favorite to me. I mean, I know that he's got wears his heart on his sleeve, a big heart, trying a bunch. He's either checkers or records for sure. What do you think about the Kitchen Hampshire battle coming into Salt Lake City?
For me, I think that Kitchen just has to do what Kitchen's done to get him to this point. Outside of that one race, where he lost all the points.
Right.
I kind of, for the most part, had one nail in the coffin a little bit, but it's crazy how quick it can turn around. So I think that he just needs to go back to being Levi, go back to those starts. A PC Cowie's going to be great at altitude. Put yourself in a great position off the start and just let the, do what he did at all the Triple Crown and everything like that, and just go for it and win your first title. I think that's what I think. I think Hampshire just seems like he's a fighter. He's a little bit like the Webb in this. He wants to fight for it, and he wants to wants a championship. But I think that Levi seems to have the performances in his favor.
Yeah. Going back, I forgot to ask you. I know that it's kind of neat because growing up, literally watching you and RC and Bubba, battle to some of the trifecta of the best racing we've ever seen. You guys buried the hatchet. You have all this respect for you now, but I did see that you rode with J Law at Dade City. You guys have a past. What's that like now? Is it just all smiles and handshakes?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's like I look at J Law as a person that really went through a lot of struggles,
Yeah.
And so for me, I look at it he's a grown adult now, but
yeah.
I see somebody out riding a dirt bike, and I just think that that's so awesome and so much healthier than anything else. And so for me, it's cool to see that he's trying to qualify for Loretta's. It's giving him a game to play, and I'm happy to see him, on the right path and riding his dirt bike, and hopefully away from it and away from the track, he's making good choices. I mean, J Law and I always kind of got on well. We really only had one situation. I want to say it was like 2005 or 6.
5 or 6, I think.
He was a kid, and we were at Kahir, and I was doing, a couple of 30-minute motos, and this punk little kid, starts like just kind of like jacking with me when I was coming up to pass him. And I just remember, like, Kia had these like bank, like where the dozer had been, they kind of, it left like a 2-foot wall almost. And I just remember one lap just being like, I've had enough. It was like the third time lapping this kid. Yeah. He was just there messing around with Kyle actually at the time. And I'm like, God, this kid's driving me crazy. And so I literally like pinned him up against that wall and grabbed him by the chin of his helmet and dragged him through this puddle. But outside of that, like, that was it. I've never really had any J-Law issues. You know, we were not teammates, but Yamaha teammates,
Right.
you know, during his championship run. You know, so he was always around the test track. And for a kid that, you know, that did the things that he did away from the track, the one thing that I will say, he always worked hard, you know, like he had the weirdest scheduling. He would, you know, like we would get there at 9 a.m., 9:30 a.m. Like the kid had already rode his motor than anyone at that point.
That's
like
neat.
He motoed hard. The track was nasty because the sprinklers were on and it was like all muddy. And he just, you know, he'd already done his motos, and at 9:30 in the morning, he was pulling out of there. And I didn't know what he was doing. He was going home to take a nap or what. And then he would go and ride at Star West or Paris in the evening with his buddies.
Oh, wow.
The kid I mean, as bad as the things that he did away from the track, he
put the work
seriously rode his dirt bike a lot, you know?
You drug him through a puddle?
Yeah.
That is amazing. That's back when we needed people with phones to get that on video.
Yes. Yeah.
That would have been awesome.
It was always funny. It was always that, you know, just up to no good. Like he would always be, you know, cutting fences or riding through the broken fences on the Honda track, or you know, he was always doing things that pissed everybody off. Jumping berms into a test track and jumping the berm back out of it. Just all the crazy stuff.
And how he got into Dungey's head was masterful. I know that he had all kinds of issues, and like you mentioned before, he was, you know, a troublemaker by nature, but he did effectively get into Dungey's head during the run.
It was crazy.
It's like a little brother that would just never, and you've got kids, so you know, like, you know, the one that just continues to annoy whatever day it is, everyone does it, but it's just like a little brother, like, just leave me alone.
Yeah. And literally, like, it was as simple as that.
Oh, that is funny. All right, we'll let you get back. I'll give you the Dunlop 5 questions and let you get back onto the road. This has been, an hour has flown by once again. I just can't believe that how time flies by. I'll bullshit with you forever, but
I've only got 14 hours to go.
Okay, hey, we'll keep going then. I don't give a shit. I'll keep. Are you driving?
Honestly, I'm driving down the road, and we're all good. So.
Okay, good. We won't rush out then. So going back to a little bit of this year, were you surprised that Tomac is coming back? I mean, I was very shocked that he's coming back and he's doing SMX and outdoors.
And I really hope that he's made that decision, you know, months ago, and he's just given up on Supercross months ago, and he's just riding his butt off on outdoors. Okay. Because I just think that the sport's healthier when you got guys like Eli in there, you know, and you know, you want to see a kid, and a great, super talented kid like Jet. You want to see him go against, you know, some badass riders, and I think that, you know, Eli just has been a shadow of his old self, unfortunately, this year. I think he's showed up a couple times. But it would be interesting because I don't know the answer because I'm not at the races, and even if I am, I'm not going to dive into that question, you know, right, in the 2 minutes that I get to say hi to those guys. But it would be interesting to know, you know, his opinion. And again, not for the public, just I would be interested to know, you know, what his thoughts are, you know, like it sounds like he only started riding dirt bikes in October. You know, and so it was a big injury, and I don't know if it was you know, he was so freaked out by it that he slowed played coming back and getting ready, but yeah, just something was missing, you know, and I think that I hope that outdoors his preparation is more to his normal, and we get to see, you know, beast Eli, because I think that, you know, smooth, calculated Jet and beast mode Eli would be and then you add in, you know, the raw speed that Chase has, and man, I think it would just be a really fun summer to watch. watch the three of those guys really go at it.
Do you think that I mean, I know that Tomac obviously last year was just unbelievable, blows his Achilles out, basically wrapped up another Supercross championship. He's come back. He's we didn't know what was going to he be as far as his fitness and skill on the bike. He's obviously still got that, won some races and right there. But at his age, Chad, only multi-time champions can speak to this, like with Tomac. Where is his head at right now? He just got his ass whipped pretty much, by Jet all summer long, and then all Supercross long, and even Cooper Webb a couple times this year. Where is his mind at right now after last year, coming back this year? Where is he at right now going into SMX?
Well, it just the rider that he is, and the rider that we know he is, he's aware of that too, but he has all the data and all the facts, right? Like only he knows how much or how little training he had, and so I think that once he gets over that, because I mean the things that I seen this year were Eli with speed and then making it to halfway in the race and then dealing with arm pump or getting tired.
Right.
And I honestly don't remember many moments of Eli's career in general that he has had speed at the beginning and then it just drops off so rapidly at the end. And so I think that there's probably some real answers to that only he knows. I think that it seems like he's healed, like I've seen him have crashes. I've seen him overjump. I've seen him everything like that. And so I think the body is okay.
Yeah.
I think, what is he, 31? I mean, some of my best years were 31, 32, 33. But you have to emotionally come to terms with that. And I think that Eli needs to know, or just my personal experience is that when it's coming to an end and everybody starts talking about it and you're the old guy and, and there's new guys coming in to push you out, it never gets left alone on, you have to become to terms with that, look, I'm older. And so then you have to change your training a little bit. You have to adapt to that and find a new balance. What worked 10 years ago doesn't work today. And so maybe he's going through a little bit of that change. That's my hope for him, is that he's going through that, the mental side of it, and I think that I just recently, this past weekend, for the first time, he threw it out there that he has intention of racing in 2025.
Yeah.
And so for me, my advice to him from my own experience would be just come to terms with being plus 30, but know that the skill level doesn't go anywhere. The fitness doesn't go anywhere. You still are very much in your prime years as a human. And just wrap your head around that. And every moment, like I think that if this was his last year, some of the results this year make sense to me, because I feel like the later years of my career, whenever you were in position or track position of like being able to be on the podium or potentially win, the emotions just sometimes overtook you, and you just messed it up. It
seems
wow. Like you wanted it so bad
at that stage of your career.
You felt like the walls are coming in, everything's ending. This is my last chance. And it's like you're almost a rookie again. Like you make those dumb choices, and I don't know, it's weird that you almost at the later part of your career, you start acting like a rookie again because, you just want it so bad because it's running out.
That is such
I hope that my advice for him is just to make peace with that. And if you want to stay around, then commit and say, I'm going to stay here until 2026, sign a 2-year deal and put the work in, because your body and your mind and your everything, you're still good enough to win and be a champion. I genuinely believe that. But if there's concerns and you're second guessing, and you're gonna do motocross season and then you're gonna do a supercross season, for me, it's just so much pressure that you create on yourself, because you I don't know, you just create this. Oh, this is my last chance, and That's my advice to him. That's
Dude,
for him.
that was so insightful because I would never in a million years think of somebody that has reached your level of success or Eli's. And you think that because he admitted this year in a press conference that it flat pissed him off that people kept calling him the old guy and that, oh, you're doing good for an old guy. I mean, he took that personal. He's not ready to mentally accept that yet. And I think that's a good point.
No, and I mean, and he's 31 years old. Like I said, I think some of my best years were like from 28 to 33. 34 years old. Like I was still good and able to podium and do it. And honestly, knowing what I know today, there's so many things that I would do differently that I genuinely believe I could have been more competitive consistently, and and choices on teams and bikes and things like that. And he's on a good team. He's on a good bike, and he has a good program with his everything. I don't know. You just need to get over that hump of the mental. And again, I understand that part, what you just said, because I never had it until Kevin Windham at Anaheim 2 or 3 decided to retire. And I'm telling you, in 24 hours of that, I was immediately the old guy, because he wasn't the old guy anymore. And it was immediately just put on me. And you had to just accept it at that point and embrace it. And
no, he passed the mantle to you. You didn't even want it.
No, I didn't want it. Just like Eli, I was mad, and I'm like, bro, I'm 31 years old. Like in real life, that's like I'm still a baby.
Yeah. Hey, you mentioned before that Jet is it's kind of real clever and sly when he comes to like jabs, where he makes it seem like it's real friendly and stuff. And some of the press conferences where he would say stuff like Tomac, you're doing pretty good for an old guy, or he's like, one of the older. I mean, I swear that I think that Jet was poking the bear, like, and trying to do it with a smile. I literally thought this is pretty smart.
100%. And that's what you love about it, like the guys they're just wired a little different, and it's what I call old school, and I miss that part, like Webb has it, Jet has it, Eli has it at points, Chase every once in a while has it, and it's I miss that part of the sport.
God, we need more of that. I told Weigandt, I said, you have never, as a journalist, had more of a pucker factor than sitting in the room with you and RC and James on a podium. There has never been a more pucker factor, asking questions and getting stared at, with laser beams from you three guys because you hated each other so much while you were racing.
I think it's funny just because I think it's an era thing, because I recently, I listened to a podcast that was MotoGP based, and they were talking about, one of the retired guys now, he's a test rider for KTM, Denny Pedrosa. Mm-hmm. And, they were kind of comparing retired, test rider Denny Pedrosa to the Denny Pedrosa as a HRC, Repsol Honda rider. And, the journalist was basically just like, yeah, you used to ask him a question that was, it was a journalist question that you had to ask.
Yeah.
And he would just look at you like, and death stare you. And it just, I don't know, like that was the era that we grew up in. And, it was old school, like where everything was a secret and you didn't show your cards, and you just, it was, you lived and died by the want to win,
The neat thing is especially the last couple of years when you and RC and James have all kind of like, come together, and you've shared the booth with them and stuff like that. But like, this is the past weekend, just hearing those guys call the race and bringing your name up a couple times, just like that admiration, that respect. It's got to be very cool for you to just realize, hey, I was part of that era. I've, these guys, the respect that we have for each other. You're still mentioned on broadcast today about the best days of the sport.
Yeah, obviously that's the biggest compliment ever. When your peers and two individuals who I, just, if you could turn back time, I'd do it all again. Just because it was so intense and so gnarly, and they were just such beasts and so awesome as competitors. But also watching the TV, and dude, 99.9% of every stat I'm in there.
Yeah,
and that always makes someone feel good, because you can't shy away from the fact that, like I'm only a 2-time champion. And when I look at the opportunities and, the opportunities that I feel I left out there, and, you could easily, I feel I could easily, with knowing what you know today and looking back at the, mistakes, it's like you could easily be a 5, 6, 7-time champion, just by doing things differently and handling it differently. And I was only able to be 2 and only 44 wins.
Only.
But only. But every stat is, and again, when you watch it and you're watching it with kids that are really paying attention, and kids that are wanting to chase that dream as well, it's a pretty cool feeling, and it's really rewarding to see, like I said, most every stat that ever gets talked about, I'm somewhere in there, and even just now, like looking at how impressive Jet's season is, and he's tied with rookie wins. And it's funny because, back then we didn't count World Supercross wins. So it's like I won 9 races, but then I only won 8 AMA. So do I have 9? Do I have 8?
Yeah.
And then you look at the points of like my points in 16 races opposed to his points in 16 races. And, it's good. It's rewarding and fulfilling to know some of the thoughts that you have and your beliefs, and when the data shows some of those and backs it up.
Even watching your videos of, out with your kids riding a race, and every once in a while you'll just flick the bike, you'll just do something just to bring back 12, 15 years of memories of just an amazing that's Chad Reed on a bike, and then I look at these poor guys that line up next to you on the qualifier, just like, seriously, of all the dudes that showed up for a qualifier, I got Chad Reed in my class.
Yeah, I think that it doesn't go away, like it's all in there. Sometimes it's always and it's funny because there's days where you ride and it feels all normal, and honestly just feels that you haven't missed a beat.
Yeah.
And then there's other days where you're like, damn, like this doesn't feel good at all. and it's funny because those are the days where I'm just like, all right, it's not that fun today. I'm done, you know? But there is days, like I must admit, there's days where you go and ride and it just feels like the thing's on rails. And when you scrub and you still like the what's the word I would use? I'm struggling, but like just that, the feeling that it gives you when you feel like that and the bike feels like it does.
You're invincible. You're invincible.
You feel one with the track and the bike and, and everything like that. Like it just is no better feel. Like there's just nothing that you can compare that to, it's so awesome.
And then having all your kids ride the 22 and the gear, and their gear and bikes, everything looks super sharp. I mean, your legacy is so secure. In what you're doing now, and that's what's so neat about this next chapter. As I watch your video series and follow you guys, is that you're still contributing. I mean, you're still, you still have chapters. You and Ellie still have chapters to write with your time in the sport and your kids. I mean, this is so cool that how many people watch what you do and learn from that, just like you did when you were coming up.
I think the biggest compliment that you get as parents is, it's always easy, like a lot of people, with the YouTube. I mean, there's many things, there's times when you have to be tough, and there's times when you gotta and I feel like sometimes I feel like my dad sometimes, like your natural reaction is just to freak out. And then there's other times and days where you feel super calm, and it was kind of just a learning period, and it's always hard as a dad or a parent to just want to be perfect the whole time, but it's not possible, and Ellie and I seem balanced. 1 minute she's revved up and she wants to give her 2 cents, and then I'm like totally calm and I just kind of sit back and laugh. And then there's other times where I need to ramp up a little bit and tell him what I think. And then she's always the calm one. So, it's funny again, I always say that there's no instructions. And even though that I've been through the sport, you're still a parent, and you're still trying to do the best you can, but you're never perfect, and you're always trying to learn, and that's what I think. I feel so rewarded by what we do with the YouTube, because it's I don't know, like, it's one thing for everybody to go out there and your kid to be ripping and winning races, but like, we're working towards that. But right now, I think it's cool that the experience that Ellie and I have, and no one's really done that from from our point of view, and start later in the sport and then just watch that progression.
Yeah.
And so that's what I hope. And it seems like people are getting out of it, like everyone's always like, oh, can you coach? Are you available? And it's like, I don't have that time and I don't have that desire to do it. Yeah. But I feel like with our YouTube, if you listen, it's essentially a big coaching lesson anyway, it's not like we edit everything out of it where we're not sharing the good stuff. Like we genuinely try to make it as real as possible and show the world that, hey, this is what we're doing and this is our beliefs. Yeah. They may or may not align with your beliefs, but if there's something to learn. Well,
you and I are very similar on parenting, where you hold kids accountable, and you're not their best friend. I mean, you're their mom and their dad, and all those things. And I know that nowadays that's there's a lot of pushback on that. But I think that looking over their childhoods, when they look back, it's just like us. They'll appreciate that you were honest with them, that you held them accountable. Those things all come later in life, but you're doing a disservice if you don't do that.
Yeah, and you kind of know, the goal is always pro racing, right? And so when you look at, the oldest is 14, and you're only 2.5 to 3 years away from that level.
That's a small window,
yeah. And you know what you get held to. Like the last name on your jersey is going to have eyes on you that no one else is going to have on them, and so you're always going to have to be accountable for your actions, And so sometimes I feel like you're holding them to a higher standard than they normally would be. But I feel like you're coaching and teaching them for the things that they're going to experience down the road. And that's, I don't know, I guess that's always
here's an example in the series is, the 2 different days where Tate, had a great day. And then the following day he had a very off day. And you said to him, do you even know who won Super Mini? Like, they were so far, ahead of you. Did you even know who won? And to me, that is, that's holding him accountable, because you knew how he could ride the day before.
For some reason you cut out. Okay. You might have to tell me that one again.
Okay, here we go. So here's an example in the racing where I think it was a Sugar Tree where Tate had a great day. Then the following day he didn't have a good day, and you held him accountable. You said you didn't. I know what you're capable of because you did it yesterday. Today you didn't even know. The Super Mini leader was so far ahead you didn't even see who won. And those are the kinds of things where if you don't hold them accountable, that's right there is a time for a lesson, because you knew what they're capable of, and then the following day they didn't live up to that.
100%, and that's why we're racing so much right now, is because, it's funny because it wasn't real to me as a racer, as a dirt bike racer, because I don't remember that part of my life. I was so little, and obviously I started at 4, and, I did all this at such a young age, where Tate's older and it's coming so rapid that, Friday practice and then Saturday, and then sometimes by Saturday evening, we've lost him.
Right.
He's, and he's just like that. He's just, at that point, the lights are on, no one's home. And so I've noticed that the last couple of weeks, he's starting to, Sundays are becoming, okay, I'm getting my kid back. I'm keeping my kid on Saturday and Sunday now, And so, to answer the question, what you just asked, the guy that I had, and he's hole shotting, and then he's making good passes, or, literally riding the bike so perfectly to how I'm like, that's what we're going to do. And then the next day it looks like we're half a lap behind the leader. And the day before we were battling with the leader and we were leading. And, the competition didn't change. The bike didn't change. The track didn't change drastically. So, you just got to it's just that information sinking in. And, you know, and I noticed already the next weekend we were better on the Sunday. And again, that's why Ellie and I are following the white lines another 15 hours to go racing, because the Sundays are coming better. And when we go into regionals, you don't get to show up one day, you know, because like the way it is, you know, he's going to try to qualify for 2 classes, you know, and the first motos are Saturday, and then the next motos for the next class or the next day. And so you can't show up, and Kaya,
every other day.
You can't show up one day and be awesome, and then the next day suck it up, you know, like essentially from here on out, this is last chance qualifying, you know, like literally it's like you're in the top 6 or we're going home.
That's it. You mentioned earlier that sometimes you feel like you're your dad, and you and I've had conversations on and off the air about this, because my dad was super strict growing up too, and I know that I want to learn the good lessons from him, but I also don't want to pass on the bad lessons that I felt that like every generation has. So what is that balance like for you? I know that you recently lost your father, and I know that brings a lot of perspective. But when you say that sometimes you feel like your dad, do you say to yourself, "Whoa, stop," and then hit a reset button?
100%. Yeah. And it's just, you know, like my family in general, the information and how we receive the information was never in a great way at all. And so, you know, when you have, you know, 18 years of your life of taking that information on, you have to rewire, wire the thought process and how you put it out there. And, you know, Tate and I are totally different beings, you know. I mean, he takes on information so differently. He's such a sweet boy, where I was always quiet and wanted to kill people in that thing, you know. Right, and it's like he wants to win, but he also wants to be sweet, and he's nice, and he's friends and everything like that, where I don't know. I feel like I had that taken away from me a little bit, you know, as a kid. So, you know, and my goal is to not pass that on, you know, like me too. My way of winning and my way of how I'm competitive, is so different. And I don't think it's, some people may think it's wrong, and Ellie seems to be sometimes that it's wrong. So we butt heads on that a little bit, but it was what I knew. It's what worked for me. And so we don't, again, in her words, we don't need to make him me.
You can't change, don't change his nature.
And so that's hard. Yeah. And that's hard because sometimes your go-to is to do it one way, and you have to back up and you know, take a breath and do it a different way.
Because you don't have to, I mean, and the thing is, motivation is something. Killer instinct, all those things are, you can name them different things, but you can be successful and be a kind-natured person. I mean, you don't have to be a serial killer to win.
Yeah, 100%. And I, you know, like I feel like at some point in life, you know, like my biggest competition was my cousin, who was like my big brother, and I loved him to death. And so there was zero hate there. And so like, I know once upon a time in life, it was, you know, like I was happy kid and, you know, have a competitive nature with friends. But yeah, somewhere along the line, it got real serious, and, you know, and it just become a different level. And that's the one thing that I don't want to pass that part on.
And when that's the thing too with with you and Ellie as a team, because when you were racing, I mean, Ellie brought the thunder. There's no if there was a lack of motivation or a needed a kick in the ass, I mean, she was there. But watching this series, like you said, the balance between the good days and the bad days, it's there's always a soft place for a kid to land. I think that's very important on a day when they have a shitty day, that they still have a soft place to land, and that their whole day and their whole value is not wrapped up in that 24 hours.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, and it's good because I mean, Ellie it's funny because like you said, like Ellie was pretty gnarly on me, and, there was zero tolerances for things, and she was always on me, but it's not that way with the kids yet,
Mm-hmm. You can tell. Yeah.
There's moments where where I see her and I'm like, hey, welcome back. And, and get a bit of a chuckle out of it. And the kids are like, whoa, who's this guy? Who's this mom? And I just said, hey, there's mom. And so
that's awesome.
It's more of a laughing matter than it is, on a regular basis. So it's funny, but, I think that for me, it's in her words that say, like I've heard her talk about it a bit, but she's just, like we were so invested when we were racing, and when you leave home at 18 years old and you're, we didn't have family and parents and, grown you to guide you like I feel, in particular, James and Ricky,
Yeah.
and for good or bad, I think that parents are good and bad, to have around you. But like those guys they had and they had people that I feel trusted and stability around them, where I feel like Ellie and I, we had to create that. And we, at times you made choices and you had the wrong people around you. And then you had to, then grow. And so you just learning all of that on the fly, was in a foreign country and, foreign people and in a cutthroat sport where everybody, as soon as you start doing well, everybody wants a piece of you. And so just, such a different time. And we're just trying to really take all of that information and all of that experience and just be better parents, to the kids.
And Kaya is just a bundle of joy too. That's what's neat. I mean, you obviously, when you talk about, I think the main word that stood out to me was stability, because when kids feel safe, then they can be themselves. And, just watching them interact and listening to the joy, listening to the good and the bad, but their nature is, that comes down to their parents, and you've given them a safe and stable place to grow up. And that's what's fun to watch.
She's hilarious. And like, she's actually easier for me to deal with, because she's kind of she's more like me than Tate is. Yeah. As far as like a personality, like, like when she's getting ready and when we're on the line, she's quiet and she's serious.
Focused.
And she kind of goes into her little thing that, where she pumps herself up, and she doesn't really need the communication. She just wants to, doesn't care about anyone, and she kind of goes into her little thing. And so it's a very watching, looking in the mirror moment for me, because she does a lot of the things that I remember doing.
Okay.
And her little competitive side, like she's super competitive. She wants to win all the time. And I love that. Then she's working so hard and chasing, like she's 11 and her group's 11 through 16.
Yeah.
And so that's a big group, when you look at the girls that are winning that, like they're 16 years old, and, Mailer is, I think, 14, and she rips, and, so I think that she's got a very competitive little class, and she's the younger of the group. And, I love that she's willing to do the work to bridge the gap.
That's neat, because like I said, you can tell, because dysfunction is pretty easy to see. Like we've all seen the mini bike dads growing up. We've all seen the mini bike little league parents and soccer parents and stuff like that. Dysfunction, they can't hold it in for long. I mean, that comes out, and then that bleeds down to the whole your entire tribe every day. So it's pretty evident to me.
Yeah, and I mean, just living, like going back to your question about like why are some of the current generation not making it? And I think that comes, it's a bigger, I don't think it's always just fair to say it's facility kids, because I think there's a lot of great things about the facilities. But sometimes I think that the sport is so, living it and seeing it at this level, it's borderline unsustainable. It really is. Like, these families are, and I'm a part of it, and so I put myself in, so I'm not calling people out, but we are crazy in the fact that, like the willingness that what you're doing and what driving all over the country, and the money that you spend and all these things, it's borderline crazy, for what it takes. And so for me, it's about trying to find the balance. And I think that the weekends, it's okay to be borderline crazy and do the drive
Yeah.
and spend the money. But during the week, I feel like the kids still have to be kids, you know? And, you know, like we were on the road for 15 days and we had to come home this past week, and it was like, we didn't ride dirt bikes this week at all.
Oh, that's cool.
I prepped dirt bikes, and then, you know, the kids did school online and they played hard in the pool, and they just were in the pool the whole time. And it's like,
that's good.
you gotta find the balance, I think, sometimes. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I would like to, you know, change is it's okay to be a little crazy, but sometimes you got to find the balance of letting them be kids too.
Hey, one of my favorite quotes of your series is when you had 6 motos that day, and at the end of the day, you looked at Tate and you said, "You have to pressure wash bikes. I'm an athlete today." you went back to being a pampered athlete. So what is the kids? What skin do they have in the game when it comes to chores and accountability and like learning to work on their own bikes, change filters, tires? I mean, how does that boil down? Because you learn somehow, and you're their full-time mechanic doing top ends, jetting, swapping engines, all that stuff. I mean, you're a multi-time champion doing that for your kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult, and there's no perfect way to do it. I think that, you know, like I remember my younger self, you know, wanting zero to do with it. You know, like if my bike needed maintenance because no one else could do it, then I would jump in and try to do it.
Yeah.
But if somebody was there to do it, then I was 100% okay with somebody else doing it.
Yeah.
You know, where nowadays I feel like, you know, every once in a while they clean them and they put filters and things like that. But, you know, you also have to take in they are dirt bikes, and you can't unlearn or know the things that you know, right? I mean, you know, if you do it wrong, it can, you know,
hurt you. Yeah.
Failure. They can hurt your kid. Like, so there's certain things that it's a fine line of letting them learn and letting them do all the things, but then also me being a control freak and wanting it all to be perfect and, you know, do it the right way, dominates more than me feeling the need that my kids need to learn that, because I didn't really learn it until like I wanted to learn it. You
had to.
You gotta want to learn it, and you know. Yeah.
What, have you called Lars and asked him any mechanic questions? like, dude, help me out.
Lars is not really my go-to, just because he, you know, like I respect his position as a team manager at HRC, and he's busy, and you know,
Goose.
I tend to. You know, I tend to pick, you know, I got Goose on speed dial. Two things. I miss seeing Goose around on a daily basis. And so I really enjoy, you know, a conversation with him. So yeah, like I always, Goose is my go-to, I would say, more than like a Lars or anything like that, just because he's tucked away in Idaho, and you know, and he's working on a mower or some four-wheeler, you know, and every once in a while I think it's healthy that I ask him some race bike, dirt bike questions.
I'm surprised he even lives with their cell phone service. That dude, he longed to be off the grid after he was done. He's like, I'm out. Yeah,
no, it is. It's funny. Because I think I actually want to say that he still goes to a couple of races. I think he goes to Loretta's and maybe like Big Bear or something like that, and helps Honda. I think he does some stuff for Honda at those races, so helps the amateur program out.
Man, you've had some awesome people in your life along the way. You just mentioned Lars and Goose, and just I know you had your obviously your own team and things like that. But man, you those were some good guys on your bike. Two of the best.
Absolutely.
Two of the best.
You know, and I think, two of the best. And, you know, I think that Oscar Wiedemann would be, you know, would be high up there. And, you know, just people that had your back and were very skilled at their job. You know, and they're also different, like personalities and how and why I hired him at that point, you know. You know, Lars is always a cool story. I think that, you know, Lars was, for the most part, he was just the practice bike guy, and he would drive the Honda, you know, big rig to the test track and help with the testing and stuff like that. And I always think I always watched him. Actually, I was going to go race a race in Australia, and Honda was cool enough to loan me a stock bike and the test track. And so Lars kind of helped a little bit. And during that time, I was like, man, like for a guy that's just driving the box van around and helping the test team, this guy has more skill than that. I think he has more potential. And 3 months later, you know, the decision to start 2-2, and Lars was one of the first phone calls.
That's neat.
You know, and you know, when you're trying to lure a guy away from HRC, and he very much bleeds red. You know, from his dad was there long before him, and you know, he's been at Honda for many years, and so you know, when you're trying to call a guy up, and luckily we were riding Hondas, otherwise I don't know that he would have did
right.
But,
yeah, that'd have been too much of a betrayal.
Yeah, but that was a cool story for me, because I could just, you know, where Lars was and he was, and then you see him now and his success that he's having with being a team manager. I think you'd like to think at some point, you know, throwing him in the deep end and having to manage, you know, a team with no budget or a low budget, and, you know, and little resources and all that. I think you know, you'd like to think that the skill set that he learned and all that helps him in his day-to-day job now today. So, yeah, no, proud of what Lars has achieved.
Yeah, we had him on not long ago, and he's just been one of those OG, you know, 20+ year guys that we've known here forever, and that's neat. And you know, I was watching. I always call Ricky's race, his amateur race in Daytona, and he was up in the booth with me watching, and I was talking to him, and I said, "Are you more nervous watching Triumph, you know, in Supercross, because you know your name's on it and you're pushing the brand and you launched all that stuff, or RCH?" And he goes, "Dude, the bills, the money." He goes, "It's always more important when you're paying the bills of what." And he's like, you know, going back to that and just the stress of that. There's no way you could have done that without the key players in there, and Lars, you know, being one of them for sure. But yeah, that even you guys, like on track walk in the team uniforms and all red, and just the class you brought to that. I know that there's been teams that have come and gone, but that will always be just a very neat chapter in our sport.
And I think that, you know, what's cool is, you know, like I always had this vision of doing it different, and it was cool to have, you know, like Lars was one of the original, and really one of the first, and maybe one of the only ones of my crew that truly embraced everything that we did. You know, the red pants, you know, that when we would do the throwback bikes, and like a lot of it, Lars like totally, and you see it on the HRC side, you know, when they start messing with, you know, different looks and feels, I always shoot him a text and I'm like, "Hey man, good job." He's like, "How do you know I did it?" And I said, "Because you did it for me, and you embraced like my vision, and I see you're doing, you know, the same thing over there." And so, yeah, no, it's always cool when you see somebody that embraces just different, you know, doing things outside the box, especially a big corporation like HRC.
Right.
You know, you start changing, you know, plastics colors and look of the bike. There's a lot of red tape. And so I think that there's a lot of people above him that trust him to do that stuff. It's pretty cool.
And can you imagine Kehoe rocking a mohawk? I mean, he still brings a mohawk to the game.
Yeah. I don't know whose hair's cooler, is Lars or JT's, but
yeah,
I think one gets on TV a little more than the other, but I think it's pretty funny.
I think JT gets his haircut every 30 minutes. I mean, that is so fucking tight. It is like literally in between segments, he gets his haircut.
Yeah. And then while we're on the JT, I think he's doing a great job. I think that the sport, you know, I think the sport needs somebody like that with that kind of information. I think he brings the best out of, you know, Ricky and the Booth team. So it's fun watching the races of, you know, people that you're close to, and they're finding success in life and finding their place. Because I think that, I really genuinely believe that JT is doing an A+ job.
Yeah, because when they throw to him, I mean, he's always prepared. He's always got stuff. I'm like, shit, I wish I thought of that. He's always like three battles away from what we're watching. I mean, he's the dude. It'd be just like you there. I mean, it'd be like literally like a former racer that is well spoken, sees stuff, sees the bike, sees whatever, and can convey that to the fans. And I just love when they throw it to him because you're going to learn something.
Yeah, and I think he's always pretty neutral. You know, I think he's not, outside of his position at WPS. He's not endorsing anything. And so I think that he's really neutral and does a solid job for the sport.
Yeah, that's with SMX and all that stuff coming up. And we talked about this before with your career, going back, is that like last year was so successful. It was such a neat thing, especially with the LA Coliseum, the way it ended up, and Jet, and it was just such a cool way for the sport to end. I love the inaugural SMX season, so I'm very excited. I was a little bit questioning it because of how many races it was, but after last year, I'm fully on board with this, the way they're doing this.
Yeah, no, I would agree. The only thing I didn't like last year, honestly, I don't like that there's more motocross. I wish that
motocrossy,
if they were doing a motocross one, then do one that's based on motocross, and then maybe change it up year to year. Maybe one year there's 2 motocross based ones with the Coliseum, or like a Supercross one, or maybe there's 2 Supercross ones, and then the last one's more the motocross. That I just think that the hybrid thing didn't really pan out as good as maybe they thought it would. I think that, 450s being really sensitive and not liking certain things, it just seemed like the window wasn't as big and cool as what I thought. And then the last thing I would say about it would be, for a winner take all, the way that they ramp it up and the whole point system, none of it made any sense to me, to the point where even the commentators were talking about something that made zero sense because it didn't work out that way. But I do believe that, like the last race when Jet, I think, was kind of managing it, maybe Chase was out front, and Jet didn't need to win.
Yeah.
And so we're kind of we almost made it out to be this, this winner take all. And Chase comes out in the second moto and just is gone.
Yeah.
This is pre-crash. And in my opinion, Jet shouldn't be allowed or able to just kind of ride it like a normal race, where he's really just managing the overall position of like an outdoor, basically a 2-moto format.
Right.
And so for me, I would like to see it maybe more of a winner take all.
Winner take all, I suppose. Yeah.
That was the only thing. I felt just watching it and sitting at home. I wanted to see Jet need to go.
Yeah.
And he didn't, he kind of just at that point was already just like, well, I can manage this, and then Chase crashed anyway. But still, it would have been cool to see Jet have to go, dude, I got to go.
Yeah.
And I got to throw down. And it just, I don't know, that would have been cool. Or even like Kenny. I think Kenny but Kenny was in a position where he could have won. And I would have liked to have seen the points where Kenny really could have won it, not Jet just be able to manage it as much as he did.
Yeah. Do you wish that, I know Salt Lake City is a big, sponsor for Supercross. I know that they do that, they do the commercials and all that stuff, but I do miss Vegas as a finale. I mean, I just to me is just would never get better than that. And Salt Lake City has never been the greatest track, and never, not the best dirt, not the best racing. I kind of miss Vegas. I'm just old school with that. But what about the finale for Supercross?
Yeah, 100% agree. It's just, I think that, Utah is a beautiful state and an amazing place, but it's definitely not a finale of a world championship like that.
Yeah.
And I think even just going back to the old way, I think it's so lame that there's no banquet, there's no celebration anymore.
That used to be huge
champion, and it's you need to take, our sport is so you're only as good as the last race, and I hate that we're not. There's so many things that we do to try to, earlier, you're like, oh, there's so many races and there's this and there's that. And for me, it's not the number of the races, but like just take one night to celebrate a season, like celebrate as a team, as a sport, your champion, your best, coolest truck driver or team of the year. Like those are, I don't know. I miss that part of our sport. I think it's super lame that, like instead of like the NBC money should go towards a banquet than some of the crap that it's going towards.
Chad, there are people listening that have no idea what we're talking about. This used to be as big of a deal as the last race. There was a post Supercross season banquet that everybody got dressed to the nines. It was just a cool night where everybody was recognized, and it was like NASCAR. I don't even know if they do that anymore, but that used to be like the NASCAR championship dinner.
100%, and there's not a single sport that doesn't celebrate a big moment like that. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's really it's really disappointing. It's it's the only time you get out of the dirt and get to be human and real for one night. And it's like, in their defense, it sounds like, like they were getting to a point where they needed to make it mandatory and nobody was showing up. And I'm like, yeah, but look at the people that weren't showing up, like J-Law didn't show up to get his trophy. And it's like,
I remember that.
Are we really going to lose or give up on banquets because of
J-Law?
So anyway, I miss that because I think it was such a really,
classy.
Really cool part.
Classy.
And it was, I think our sport, you need to take one night off to celebrate, the wins and and the successes that the season, brought, or the lack thereof, and again, if you didn't win, you have to go and get the second place. And I got enough of those. And let me tell you that it's still a cool night. You still get to dress up. You still get to go and, just enjoy it a little bit.
And you get to show off Ellie one more night a year. How cool was that?
Yeah, no, totally. Just, it really was fun.
Coming down to Salt Lake City, I know that this weekend, I think I just saw a bulldozer I think that they might, I don't know if they're gonna have weather up there or not. I'm hoping not. I want the last race to be clean. What do you think about all these outdoor stadiums? I mean, weather has come into play this year more than I think any other. I know that you've had great success in outdoor stadiums. I mean, you owned San Diego and Daytona. I mean, what do you feel about the outdoor stadiums?
I love them. I think that the fuel, the smells, the everything that is in a closed stadium is so toxic and so nasty.
Okay.
So I love open stadiums. And with them eliminate and drag them back, they're making all these tracks simplified and, all these things. So Mother Nature throws,
nice.
Throws back in what they're throwing out. So, outside of the mud races this year, we might have seen Jet go 17-0. So, who knows?
I'm with you on that because I was talking to Hammer and even RC at Daytona. He mentioned, he goes, well, look how many more outdoor stadiums. That's when the point chase was a lot closer with Jet, and it was the only equalizer. I mean, inside perfect conditions, and like you said, if he's not, he's going to be winning by 15, 20 seconds, which is a snoozer for everybody. Nobody wants that except for Jet.
Yeah, no, I think I'm all for the open stadiums, and again, mud races are good or bad. There's nothing in between. They suck for the teams, but I think they at least bring the unknown of what can happen.
Yeah, you're real good friends with Mitch. I mean, you've known him forever. Surprised you never rode for him per se, for his official team. But what do you think he was thinking in Denver when he had 2 number 1 plates, 2 turns into a race?
Yeah, it's pretty scary, right? Like I think
just shooting whiskey with an IV after that point. Like what can you say to Mitch after his dry spell, where his own riders come together in the same corner of an east-west, and then there goes the plate?
Yeah, and I think when he's been around a long time, and he's probably seen that happen
too many times.
Too many times. But I mean, I think that it all starts. Kitchen had a bad heat race, put himself in bad gate pick.
Yeah.
McAdoo. Man, I don't know what he did in practice, but it's like there was just that crash is so avoidable. So for me, he has to be. I mean, again, I don't think Mitch is that guy these days, but like old Mitch, I would imagine would be just livid.
Yeah,
because I feel like it was kind of self-inflicted, a lot of it.
Yeah. And then he had just lost Faulkner in the same season. Just a dominant. He's back, and so he's lost 3 points leads on crashes in the same season. And talking back to the buy, sell, hold, what would you do with Austin Faulkner?
Oh, geez.
I love Austin. I mean, I think the kid's got a ton of heart, and I think that a lot of stuff, even coming together with Jed over that finish line jump. I mean, a lot of stuff he's done on his own for sure. There's no doubt that he's caused a lot of his own adversity, and some not. But I just think the kid. It's like Adam Cianciarulo. It's like, how does he not have a championship or more at this point?
Yeah, just something's missing. Something needs cleaning up. And he's worked with multiple people, and it seems like he's tried to get help. So yeah, I don't know, just something. I mean, the skill is there.
Yeah,
like there's no denying the skill.
Did you ride with contact lenses? Did you ride with contacts?
No, thankfully not. Good. I never had any vision issues or anything. Okay. Like the biggest annoying thing I ever had was I was always a big Ford sweater, so I always dealt with goggle sweat and dripping in your eyes or on your lens, and it was always super annoying. But I mean, you couldn't. I've never experienced that, but I could only imagine how horrible and how scary that particular thing would be if you got one eye you can see good and the other eye is questionable,
Oh, so, that's sketchy. Yeah, no, and that was a very sketchy, sketchy rhythm section that night too. I mean, it was claiming people with good vision.
Yeah, and he did it a couple of laps in a row, and I was like, man, something's not looking like he just, he needs to clean that section up. So again, I've only heard what you've heard, on these lens coming out, but it makes sense to me because I was watching and I'm like, he was so on point and good. And then next minute he just started making like little mistakes, and they were weird mistakes. And so, it was interesting to, hear that he had that, because I think that makes sense from what I was seeing.
Yeah. Mitch was unstoppable. Obviously Geico, came up, and then now Star. It seems like Star, when you look at their roster of riders, I mean, there's pros and cons of that, but when you look at that structure of that team, do you like that model? Do you think they're just throwing as many magnets at the refrigerator until they get some that stick? What do you think of that? I mean, they've obviously got championships. They've got great riders. I'm not, Bobby's obviously, the man right now. What do you think about the Star model?
Not a fan.
It's a lot.
And I'm not sure that I agree that it doesn't seem like it's working out. I mean, there's zero chance of a championship on both things for him. And, I shouldn't say zero chance.
Deegan still has a chance.
Correct. Yeah. Hayden has a shot at it. But I mean, when you look at the roster and you look at the people on there, I think the result should be better than it is. Especially with the volume that they have, and just the numbers. So I think, I don't know. My comment is just on my own personal belief. I would hate to be in a system like that. I would not thrive in that environment at all. Because I would, I like to be more away. I liked going to the test track, and I liked seeing my teammates, during the test season. That was always fun for me, and it was an interaction that I really enjoyed. But as far as like just being 24/7,
Moto,
and just having the same trainer, on your ass 24/7 and living with them basically. And that would just drive me absolutely crazy, and burn me out. So
that's why Kitchen left and went to Pro Circuit. Kitchen wanted out of that. It was not his style. And
I mean, you see, again, it's just, there's a lot of people, and Ricky says, what do? You fight, what is it? Iron on iron or something like that. I don't know. I don't believe that, Ricky never did that. Never rode with any competitors.
Even his teammates.
Sometimes I think that Ricky says that because it's his old place and his mom runs it there.
Yep.
And his dad. And again, I don't want to, not talking shit on Ricky, but just kind of like sometimes I think that it's more personal things going on than what he would, what he truly did. And even the Alden program, I just don't believe that we have not seen the success come out of Alden's program since it's gone to a group setting. And
that's a good point.
I don't know, that's factual. Not like when you look at the numbers pre group setting to now, and I mean, they have very, very different numbers.
Yes.
Like you talk about complete domination of the sport for a decade and a half to now he can't even, he's rarely on the podium.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm not a big believer on it. As a dad of a 14-year-old that wants to go take on this sport, it's probably the single hardest thing that I'll have to do as a dad, as a parent, and as a manager, like managing my kid's career and helping him is, where would I put him? Because none of those programs excite me.
Yeah.
Anyway,
what if he ends up riding back at your old place in Florida?
No, yeah, never say never, but
right.
I don't foresee that happening. I think right now we're looking for property and would love to do something on our own again. Again, going back to, I believe in if you don't have the motivation to get up and do your work on your own, and and when the lap time's wavering and the lap time's slower than it was the day before, the number, what the lap time is and what the track can do. You don't need 10 other guys that are good from Monday to Friday, kicking your ass and bumming you out and ruining the track and all the things that, in my opinion, what happens. Because there's so many guys Monday to Friday that are so badass, but they just can't race on the weekends. And I just think that they bring it, and then they almost, I don't know, just like a fighter. A fighter doesn't fight against his component while training,
right.
And like 24/7, for 8 weeks leading, or the whole, like you fight a guy, like they might do some sparring here and there, but for the most part, like you don't take the hits, you don't take the, you don't do it, and that's, I don't know, that's just my opinion, and maybe I'm old school and irrelevant, but that's just how Ellie and I think about it.
Are you surprised? Like Deegan he's just separate. Let's just say he's, with his resources, his success, what he is right now at 17, all that stuff. That star model, I mean, eventually he's going to outgrow that. When do you believe that he will be like a Tomac and just be able to do it on his own?
I mean, you're already starting to see it, right? Like, I mean, I've been around the sport long enough, and I have a foot in the door in most every team and people, and so I hear what happens. And you already see it. He's venturing out. He's getting away and trying to go and ride different places and whatnot. And so I think that's already happening, in the background, and maybe more than we know. And maybe that's sometimes the lack of the performances like Foxborough.
Yeah, it's it's weird, like you said before, and we got to remember that, he's, 17-year-old kid, 18-year-old, about to be 18 years old. It's like, it's so good that he's in the sport right now. We need him. It's such fresh, young blood, and the whole story, the YouTube following, all those things. I can't tell you how many people that don't follow this sport that I know follow Deegan. It's like, he's obviously bringing in, more fans into the sport. When would you say best case scenario in 2 years he goes to a 450? If he wins 2 titles, if he wins an outdoor title and a Supercross title, he moves up. Does he stay around and defend? What do you think he's going to do? Not what you want him to do.
What do I think he's going to do?
Yeah.
If you look at the track record and everything up until this point, I think he could have played. But what I think he should do is, win Supercross next year, win Motocross next year, and go 450.
that's 2000s talking, baby. I love it.
Yeah. But just because he's that good. I think that he just needs to make it happen.
I would love to. I don't want to rush that. Obviously, I think Jet wants him to stay down for 5 more years. But it's like Juju. Look at him on KTM. You can still have these young kids come in and have some success on a smaller bike. But when you see the 30-year-olds on a 250, it's I know that they need rides. They want rides. I still love that, they have the opportunity to make a living for their families and stuff like that. But I do love the model. If you're ready to move up, move up.
Yeah. And I think that when you look at, you got to think that Cooper Webb has a multi-year deal. If Eli gets, finds the hunger and he signs a multi-year deal, then suddenly you find Star doesn't have a place for Hayden in 1 year, 2 years, So, that plays a role in it as well. And that's, as a parent, you always want the best for your kid and whatever. And sometimes the team finds themselves not in a position to do the right thing. And so they kind of play the cards, again, if he wins a Supercross title, like let's say he wins, it all goes perfect for him and he wins this weekend, no matter what.
Right.
He only gets next year anyway.
That's it. That's true.
And I would seriously like to think if he doesn't win this year, he wins next year. And so then he has 1 more year to defend if that's what he chooses to do.
Yeah, that would be, for the 450s, that would just be an amazing, thing to have, because I think everybody kind of wants, looking at Jet, looking at the, into the future. You mentioned Chase. Obviously, he's young. He's still got a lot going on, but we got, Barsha and Webb and Tomac and Anderson and Roxon. It's the turnover in our sport in the next 4 years is going to be, it's going to be unrecognizable for a lot of people.
Me included.
Yeah.
It is pretty crazy to think of, you look at Eli and Kenny as, just the kids, but now they're the old guys in the sport and they're getting pushed out. It's funny, just, Yeah.
What about Roxon's shock exploding? I've never seen anything like that. A component failure like that, suspension in the whoops. The worst possible timing.
Oh, absolutely worst timing. My biggest thing would be like everyone's talking about. Oh, it's he landed so hard on the triple, and I'm like, God, like dirt bikes, bikes in general are made to land hard. Like that. Yeah. Like I think that there was human error involved in that one, unfortunately.
That's amazing. Well, dude, I'm going to give you the Dunlop 5 questions and get you out of here. We've run 2 hours. It's like I said before, I can bullshit and bench race with you forever. You've been, we look back and, I've talked to Kevin about this. I even mentioned this to Weeds. There are 4 riders that are special to me for different reasons. You are the only non-American, but you're up there for different things. And that only is extended when I watch you as a dad, because, you say human first, I think in a lot of your profiles. And we've always said here, the person without a helmet is more important than one with one on. And that just, goes across the board, because, what you do on a dirt bike, that's great. The records, all that stuff. But who you are as a human is always going to be more important. And just getting to see you in a different prism as a dad and chasing your dreams as a family with your kids is just, moved you up that list, brother.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, you ready for the Dunlop 5 questions? Dunlop, best tires in the business. Check them out at their socials, at Ride Dunlop. Question number 1, is Vince Freeze a witch?
A witch. It seems that, all the scenarios and all the craziness and everything, he's somehow been in the picture this year for sure.
Even the start finish line red flag shit, dude. He is a voodoo doll. He has got to. Yeah, he's got to practice.
It's crazy because like during the show, you didn't really realize it was Vince until later on.
Right. Of course, it's Vince.
I saw the 125. I'm like, oh my god. Maybe that's what it is.
What is your favorite Vince Freeze? Do you have a Vince Freeze story? Do you have a favorite one or one that we don't know about or run in with him?
I mean, the biggest thing for me is just, just like everybody, he does things. And it's like, in my opinion, the one thing that I really don't like that he does, he just cross jumps a lot.
Oh yeah. That's scary. Yeah.
And the scary thing is you approach him or you confront him and that you're crazy and that you like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, to the point where you start second guessing, like, hang on a second, like, and I'm like, no, you cross jump, like you went from one side of the track to the other, and I watched it, on the floor at World Supercross last year, and this year I watched it on the TV, and it's just, he sometimes just is not aware of the things that he does. And I don't know if that's good or bad, but anyway.
I'd be remiss to ask you about WSX with Adam moving on. What do you think the future is at WSX?
I've been gone for a long time, like basically the whole 24th season I checked out.
Yeah.
My opinion is that it's, the new owners and the direction that they were going didn't align with what I felt was best for the sport of Supercross.
That's fair.
And so for me, I bailed. And I believe the same things happened for Adam. So I think the big picture is, I think it's really sad to see World Supercross go away. I genuinely believe that the sport of Supercross needed it. Like I was in attendance. I was at the stadium. I was in the country at Abu Dhabi. To go to a place like Abu Dhabi in the middle of the desert, in the middle of the Middle East, and just see kids, from all walks of life, so happy to see dirt bikes and just the average, the fans and the different clothing that they had on. And I just thought it was so awesome, and it was packed. It was sold out. They loved it. And I just, it makes me sad that it's going to, I don't know. Again, I don't know what's going to happen because I've been gone. But I struggle to believe that it's going to, even run this year, to be honest.
All right. Well, that's going to be sad. Like I said, I always want people to make a living doing what they love and racing dirt bikes around the world. So we'll see where that goes. All right. Question number 2 here. Did you have starting line rituals? I watched Chiz do his little dance and I just laughed my ass off with his little shuffle he did. Did you have superstitions or starting line rituals?
My thing was always just clap my hands, I guess. Like whenever the 30-second board went up, I don't know why. Like, like it was just always
let's go. Let's do this.
It's funny, like I always wore a heart rate monitor, and like it's crazy. Like for me, right before, like as we fire up bikes, right before 30-second board, my heart rate was always really high.
Yeah.
And as soon as the 30-second board went up, my heart rate would just come down.
That's cool.
It's so crazy that awesome. I would imagine that it happens the opposite for most people. You're kind of getting fired up, but for me, it was always like 30-second board went up and everything just went quiet. It was like 30 seconds felt like a minute, and it just, I don't know, just everything went quiet, and I'd clap my hands, and it was like a real calm piece of. Yeah, it was awesome.
Because you were prepared. You were a badass and you were prepared.
Hopefully.
Hey,
that's what it was.
Is being on the starting line like a men's bathroom in the urinals where there's no talking? It's so funny how nobody ever talks to the guy next to him on the starting line. Is that like an unspoken rule?
Yeah, like it's funny, like James and I always seem to not start next to each other, for obvious reasons.
Right.
I think we just always give each other space, and Ricky as well. Ricky was always Ricky put himself on the inside a lot. I wasn't a big fan of the inside, so I I always kind of went away from him anyway. But like anytime that we rarely got next to each other, you kind of know, like, some people hate talking and they want to talk. James was one of them that didn't really want to talk.
Okay.
And so I would just talk to him. Be like, hey man, what's up?
Oh, I love it.
You know, like, and he'd look at you like, this guy really fucking seriously is he gonna talk to me right now? Like, he hates me and you're gonna really talk to me? And you just used to see the look on his face and he'd be like, bro, you really want to talk to me? It was so funny. And and he would do it to me, you know, like there'd be days where I would be like, I don't want to look at this guy, you know, like whatever and he would do the same. And yeah, you push the buttons and
I love that.
You know, you've been around long enough. You kind of, you knew the people on your left and right and who they were and how they were wired. And so, yeah, like some of them you wouldn't talk to and you wouldn't even acknowledge them. And other times you'd talk to them just because you knew that they didn't want to talk.
I love it. I love it. That's like looking down and saying, man, what is that dripping from your bike right before the 30-second clock, the car goes sideways?
Yeah. Yeah. Or like, you know, people, and I always, you know, as a team owner and as somebody who ran a race team, like, it was always nice. You could see, you know, someone goes to the gate with a different front tire, you know, had a new front tire or a new rear tire. And you could see that, oh, you know, like he's struggling, he's fighting rear traction, front traction. And there was always a story, you know, like if you looked close enough, you paid close enough attention.
Yeah.
You could always have a finger on the pulse of what was happening up and down the line.
Oh, dude, you're the first one to admit that. I love that. If they didn't want to talk, then I would just be like, "Hey, man, what's up? How was your day?"
And it goes both ways. You know, it goes both ways. It's good and bad.
Oh, that is funny. All right, single over table over single. Is that a quad?
Seems like I've always called it a quad, but I would say technically there is only 3 jumps, so it's really just a triple. But it just seems that we've always called it a quad, and I don't know why. I don't have a good answer for you other than I've always called it a quad because that was kind of what was. I don't know. That's what we come up with.
Hey, I'm sticking with it because a quad sounds tons better than a long triple.
Even like, you know, and like before we started doing those, they started doing like where we would jump from the front side of the table, and then they would have, you know, like we call it a table, and then they call it a 3-footer, and then they would do a 5-footer or a backward ski. Yeah. You know, and so we would call that a quad, and it was like that was actually really big, and we always called that a quad too. So I don't know. It just seems like it's a quad.
All right,
but it's.
Hey, you know what DeCoster said? He goes, "If you jump it, call it whatever you want." So guess what?
Yeah,
you jump it, you call it a quad. All right. Do you wear Crocs, Chad Reed?
Oh, I do not. My wife, it's a hard no. She says no. I wanted to be cool like the kids, but no, I'm not allowed. I'm not allowed Crocs. Oh God, she says, hell no.
Hey, RJ,
Ellie,
I love it.
Because they get their feet dirty everywhere.
No, I'm not allowed. So,
okay.
Yeah, no Crocs for me.
That is awesome. All right, last question. Would you have picked up your bike and finished the race like McAdoo after his gear malfunction?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's awkward and as weird as it would be, but I mean, that's what you're paid to do is finish the race. And, yeah, I mean, that's pretty crazy. I mean, I don't know of any other person that's ever dealt with that situation, you know? I mean, my understanding is he wears underwear.
Yeah.
You know, like I know riders that never rode with underwear.
That's insane.
So it's like,
that's like a cheeseburger.
And I'm like, God, and that's gnarly. I couldn't imagine riding without underwear.
Yeah.
But I know quite a few people that actually did that.
Commando on a dirt bike.
And I imagine going to Southwick with no underwear.
No.
Or even Supercross these days. I mean, every other Supercross has a sand section.
Yeah.
So anyway, getting back to the McAdoo, like the fact that it ripped not only his pants, but
and his underwear.
His underwear, and
everything came out perfectly.
To my knowledge, you didn't lose any blood. That's crazy to me. And yeah, no, it is. It's pretty gnarly.
Hey, McAdoo is a dude. That's talk about heart. He is a crazy. It's like always put a camera on him. Something's going to happen. But I will always have respect for that dude jumping up and being like, "Let's do this. I don't care. We're going to finish a race." And he passed like 8 people that night. So congratulations to McAdoo.
Yeah, I have a signature knobby underwear at 22 underwear. I really should have smarter.
my
And I should have got his address and boxed him up some and sent him to him.
Yes. So this has never happened to me in my entire career.
Just sign it and give it to him.
Hey, the Coster said he would have too, but he would have wished that it would have been warmer that night.
Yeah, right. Not cold.
Yeah. McAdoo. I think maybe since he was proud, that made a big difference because Blair said, "I don't care if I was on a championship, I'm pulling over."
That's funny.
That's awesome. Well, Duke, hey, congratulations on the YouTube 22 TV guys on YouTube. Check it out, and just remember this, Chad. When you're talking to Tate or Kaya or Pace, whatever it is, just remember that Tiger Woods' son does not listen to him. So, dude, you are in good company when it comes to teenagers and trying to get across. Even as great as you are, teenagers are going to be tough no matter what.
Yeah, it seems like Charlie's he's on tour. It seems like he has, he's like the kids where he can walk. My kids could walk into any semi at any race, and they know all the guys and the managers and it's just same as Charlie, like where he just probably is like, God, I don't want to listen to that. I can go talk to the guy that's winning the championships these days,
Yeah, he's played Augusta probably 30 times.
Maybe when we're around the races more, that'll happen to me.
Yeah. Well, that is awesome. Hey, again, thank you, Chad. Again, it's been decades of fun with you, and please send our love to Ellie as well. She's a badass, and she's been a part of this as well. So thanks for catching up. Good luck. Safe travels on the road. Continue, guys, to check out 22 TV on the road to Loretta's and beyond. Always a pleasure, my friend.
Yeah, cheers, guys. Appreciate it.
Peace. Good night.
Later, bud.
All right, there we go. Chad Reed. 2 hours and 20 minutes with Chad Reed. What a guy. Again, if you guys aren't following that, which I'm sure everybody is, it gets tons of views there. 22 TV, his two sons and Kaya, his daughter, and Ellie and Chad hop on the road and travel around, ride dirt bikes for fun. It's so cool to see. And watching Tate get so much better on a dirt bike, it's interesting to see how this is going to progress on a Super Mini now. And Chad mentioned before he's going to hop on a 125, and then with that height he'll move up. I mean, there's no doubt he's definitely growing like a weed. So that's going to happen. So very cool to catch up with Chad. Always a favor. I've been looking forward to that for a couple of days since we lined this one up. He's on his way back up to I think Ohio for the next race. So safe travels to the Reed family on the way up. Again, our sponsors, RacerX. The great folks there at MX Sports, W Wheels, OGO Concept, Two Rowers. Thank you guys for the many, many years of success and support of our show as well. Check them out at Ride Dunlop. And Kai had some really cool purple wheels that W Wheels sent them to Tutu over there at Chad Reed. So check out her purple wheels and her KTM. It works out good. Her kit's very tight, her gear, her look, a lot of style like her dad. So guys, again, thank you for checking out DMXS. I actually have 2 more shows lined up this week. Everybody's kind of returning my calls all at the same time. So it'll be a fun one for the next, 2 weeks here. So DMXS, thanks for listening.
DMXS.
It even vibrates like real.
The Dead Motocrosser Society.